Hello and welcome to this video. I love astrology. I know that you're interested in it as well. And I wanted to share with you a very simplistic way to help you understand how to read your chart. So let's get to some slides that I've put together to help you do that. All right, so let's take a look at natal charts explained. So what we're going to have a look at throughout this video is firstly a natal chart. We're going to have a look at the elements within the chart, and we're going to look at how you actually read a chart. Now, there is a lot of information stored within a natal chart, so it is easy to look at it and think, oh my gosh, what does all of this mean? I know whenever I do a chart for somebody and I'm presenting it to them personally, there's a lot of questions about what everything means. So that's part of the reason why I thought I'd put this video together to help you understand what it is that you're actually looking at. Now, I want to keep it simple because there is a lot of complex themes and complex elements to reading a chart, but we're just going to start with the basics today. So, astrology is an age-old science. I believe it's a science. It's also an art form, and it is a philosophy as well. And it's very much like learning another language because it has symbols, there's lines, and there's shapes, and they all create meaning to help you understand what your natal chart is saying. So learning how to read a natal chart and what it means, the relationships between all of those components, that takes time, it takes practice. There's a lot in a chart to know, to be able to look at it, to understand and interpret it. So what is a natal chart? Let's start there. A natal chart is a snapshot of what was going on in the universe the very moment you were born, and that's why your time is important. And this is a snapshot. It's like a fingerprint of the lessons that you've chosen to come into the world to learn about through and evolve through in this lifetime. Your chart will actually show you what your lessons are, how you experience them, and where it takes place. And I've got some examples to show you how that actually works. Those components, that's what makes it such a powerful, truthful tool for you to understand yourself. And it's very much like a soul psychology. There's a lot of deep themes that go on within a chart. So we're going to use my chart as an example. And you can see that there's a lot of elements within this graphic. There's lots of things that looks like what's going on. You know, there's connections, there's lines, there's shapes, there's symbols. So I'm going to explain some of those to you. So let's start with the outer ring around here. That shows all the 12 symbols from the zodiac. Now, I know that we are led to believe that we only have a star sign, which in astrology we call our sun sign because that is the astrological month that we're born in. But we actually have the 12 signs within the zodiac within us. So that's why if you're, say, a Taurus sun and you know somebody else who's a Taurus sun, you may not be anything alike. And the reason will be because your chart is completely different. So your sun sign or your star sign, as you might know it, is really only 1/12 of what makes up your energy in your natal chart. So they're held around the outside of the ring. Now the blue ring here around the middle, that shows the placement of the planets. Okay, so you can see there's lots of symbols in here as well. They're where the planets are placed. Now the green ring, although it kind of looks a little bit bluish here, but that inner ring here with the numbers in it, that shows you what house that actual segment is. So here we've got the 9th house, that is all that segment there, and those numbers never change. So this will always be the 9th house, this will always be the 10th house, this will always be the 11th house, and so on. Now, the numbers beside the signs and the planets, that shows the degrees or the position of where the planets are or were when you were born. So there is like an exact location, and that's the number that helps to locate what part of the sign it was in when you were born. Now, the interesting thing here is a natal astrology chart is read anti-clockwise. So we're used to reading left to right, and we're probably used to reading a clock that goes clockwise. Well, this actually goes anti-clockwise. So you start from over here where this little black arrow starts. That's the starting point of the chart, and you actually work your way around the chart back to the beginning. Now, this starting point here, where that black arrow is, that is the moment that you came into the world, and that marks your ascendant. And that's also called your rising sun as well. So that's the very starting point of your chart, and that's the moment you were born, and that represents your first house. Now, the red and the blue spaghetti lines in the center here, that shows the relationship between the planets. So there's actually, the planets actually affect each other in either a very easy way or a slightly challenging way. And so that's what all those middle lines represent as well. So having said that, what does all of that mean? So I've put this graphic designer together for you to help you understand clearly within one document how that all comes together. So for instance, say, let's look at the first house. So this is your ascendant or your rising sign. It's ruled by Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. That's its symbol there. The theme of the house is identity, personality, appearance, the mask shown to the world. So each house also has a particular theme that relates to the sign and the planet. So the first house, for example, relates to Aries. It also relates to the planet of Mars. And so that's where we've got Mars happening now, and it's the first house. So each of the 12 houses have a theme. Each of the 12 houses have a planet. Sometimes they have 2 planets, and they have a sign also. So for example, like I was saying, first house is Aries and its planet is Mars, and it goes around the 12 houses in that way. So how does that all come together? Let's take a look. So we have a planet in your natal chart. We have a sign that's connected to the planet. Then we have a house, which is the segment that it's within. And that combination of those 3 things makes up your evolutionary lesson around that particular planet. So the planet is the what. It's like what the evolutionary lesson is that you're learning. The sign is how you learn it, and the house is where you learn it. So you can see there's lots of moving parts putting the pieces together, and that's why astrology is such an individualistic representation of your soul and what you've learned, coming to learn around your life lessons. So let's have a look at my chart. We're going to take a look at my 7th house. So I have 2 planets in my 7th house, but we're actually going to have a look at Mercury here. So that's the symbol for Mercury. It's in the sign of Scorpio. You can see it's at 14 degrees and it's in my 7th house. So the interpretation of that is, so the what is the planet. Mercury is the planet of communication. So my interpretation is that my communication is best when we go to the how. So we're looking at the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio is deep, penetrating, empowering, and transformational. So that's how I communicate. And the where is my 7th house. And the 7th house is all about social interactions, my relationships, and my partnerships. So you can see how those 3 components come together to help me understand this is how I communicate, this is who I'm communicating with, and what my best form of communication is. It's deep. Like, don't give me conversations about the weather. I am most happy when I can have a conversation where I deep dive into, the core of what's going on. That's like for me. So astrology is the most wonderful tool for self-understanding and self-empowerment. Our natal chart is not only a model of our energetic blueprint imprinted at birth, but it also contains information about our potential for great light and the opportunity in our shadow. Let me explain how. This is a quote from Ashtara, by the way, and she was my spiritual teacher when I got into astrology. It was her information that I learned from. So I thought it was really important and respectful to include a quote from her. So now let's have a look at the psychology of astrology. And this, with my Mercury in Scorpio, this is what I love because it's a real deep dive into the psyche. So here we go. We've got a symbol. It's Mercury symbol. We've got the sign of Scorpio and it's in my 7th house. So let's take a look at how this works. So the psychology of astrology is about having there's a soul expression and then there's an ego expression. And we get to the soul expression by working through our ego to embody the best version of ourselves, which is the soul side of all those signs in our chart. So for example, Mercury in Scorpio looks like focused, sensitive, psychic, passionate, and emotional strength. So that's how I communicate. That's the essence of my communication when I am fully showing up in my soul. Now, before that happens, we usually have to unlearn, uncondition, let go, move through a lot of stuff to be able to express that as our, as our embodied self. So the ego helps us do that. So it's not that necessarily that soul and ego are good and bad, light and dark. They're just the parts that make up who we are. So on the ego side, Mercury in Scorpio can look like secretive, possessive, resentful, betrayal, and intense. And yes, I can guarantee you that I have experienced a lot of lessons in that ego, in those ego themes to move into my soul side. And yes, they're deep and they were challenging, but I feel like I no longer attract those ego lessons to learn about how to be in the soul side of the Scorpio sign. So our mission, our evolutionary goal to work through is to move from our ego into our soul and to completely embody that as that's our normal. So we want to evolve out of the ego patterns and embody the soul qualities so that the soul is our default, not the ego. That's the goal. So this is why I love, I'm just going to move myself over here. This is why I love astrology so much. I think you can see just by looking at my Mercury in Scorpio why this appeals to me. I do love looking at people's charts. It comes very easily to me. It always has come easily to me, even when I first started studying this, about, it would be like almost 20 years ago that I started my studies. I've practiced it ever since. I've used it for my own evolution. I've helped other people with their charts and with readings as well. And I felt like it was time for me to do a little more and share some more information around how you can step into learning more about who you are through your natal chart. Now, if you have any questions, please contact me. Please reach out. You can message me on Instagram, shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions or you would like to know more. I hope that the information I gave you today, you can take that and use it. Have a look at your chart. Start having a look at what your planets are and where your houses are and what your signs are, so that you become a little bit more familiar with the information that's stored within your natal chart, because it's such an amazing resource for you to evolve with and to learn from. So that's it from me, and I look forward to having some more conversation with you about this.